I think we've gotten numb to details about Ghislaine Maxwell, and that certainly seems purposeful from the Trump administration. The woman that Donald Trump wished well, someone who it seems has more power than anyone else in the world over Donald Trump, is somehow an under-discussed story by our media. But it shouldn't be at all, and it shouldn't be anymore, given that Ghislaine Maxwell is now having her blackmail of Trump leaked from prison. This story is only continuing to grow. What Maxwell has over Trump's head, why he is operating to satisfy, it seems, every single one of her whims, except, of course, a pardon, which may be Donald Trump's ultimate plan when this is all said and done. But I think before we can get to this new story being broken about what Ghislaine Maxwell has on Donald Trump and what the FBI knows about it, we have to start with a reminder of what her conditions are in prison because of the power she has over Donald Trump.
Ghislaine Maxwell was transferred from her original sentenced confinement to a very cushy plum camp in Texas after that visit, you'll recall, from Todd Blanche, who's the number 2 at the Department of Justice. And he went over to satisfy himself that Ghislaine Maxwell had all of the right things to say and to not say about Donald Trump. He wasn't going over there to investigate her and to get her to talk about who the other co-conspirators were. He wasn't looking for the other people who had victimized all of the girls and young women. No, he was just trying to satisfy himself that she wasn't going to implicate Trump in any way. And when he pronounced himself satisfied after 2 days of questioning, then she had this extraordinary transfer as somebody implicated in a sex trafficking conspiracy. Sex offenders are not normally allowed in this camp. She was transferred there on an overnight basis. I mean, even people who are ordinarily eligible have to go through months-long process to demonstrate a compelling reason for why they need to be transferred from one facility to another. Now what we've discovered is now that she's there, she's basically being treated like an honored guest at a Trump hotel rather than a federal prisoner. And the other prisoners who are objecting to all of the pampered and privileged treatment she's receiving are being punished. And
Jamie Raskin put it perfectly when he called it a 5-star Trump hotel. That is where Ghislaine Maxwell is staying. She gets her dogs, she does yoga, she does pottery. Remember that photo that I showed in video with her walking with the umbrella? Because it was a sunny day in Texas. She just didn't want to feel uncomfortable in a prison where the guards are afraid of her. And the media just has asked little to no questions about why we've all accepted this, that a prisoner has power over the president of the United States, that this person has made Trump fearful that they can threaten the president. What? How has this not been discussed more? It came up with Pam Bondi, and it just didn't really land, or I guess she wouldn't really respond.
But I want you to know that every time she does get these perks, and it's been publicly reported, that the folks she's abused, the survivors who are sitting here, they see themselves as being denied justice. They feel re-traumatized. And I'm glad that we agree on that. But she should not be in that prison. And she needs to be moved back to a maximum security prison as soon as possible. But what she has told another committee here is that she won't cooperate with them unless she gets clemency from Donald Trump. It's just crazy to consider that she can be wielding this kind of influence within the administration.
This should be as big as anything else. And I say that because I think y'all realize how much I've kind of focused on the first Trump term, right? If Donald Trump was wishing Ghislaine Maxwell well in the first term, it certainly means he knew that there was some sort of file on Epstein coming together, right? He certainly didn't want their relationship being scrutinized, which is kind of weird that he'd then wish her well. But he had to have known that Ghislaine Maxwell knew she had something on Trump, right? Extensive files, photos, videos, accounts, and that is what is being exposed right now. Even as Ghislaine Maxwell is in prison, waiting for her probable pardon from Donald Trump, more information is coming out, and it is incredibly, incredibly unnerving. A breaking account from Roger Sullenberger, DOJ detected record revealing that Maxwell holds potential blackmail over Donald Trump. The document, which was reposted after I reported the removal, shows Maxwell's lawyers possess 3 FBI interviews with an underage Trump accuser that hasn't been released to the public. On Wednesday, Sullenberger reported that the Justice Department had removed from its Epstein file database a key document about a woman who told the FBI that Donald Trump assaulted her when she was a child. By Thursday evening, it was once again live. It's unclear why the DOJ deleted the document in the first place. Here's proof the document had been taken down. It's also unclear why they put it back up after the reporting from Sullenberger, which included a screenshot of the relevant information and a link to an internet archive of the full record. The information in the document pertaining to the Trump accuser, whom the DOJ identifies as a victim of Epstein in the early mid-1980s, doesn't appear altered in any way. However, the existence of the record, more specifically the public's knowledge of its existence, carries significant implications when it comes to the president and his DOJ's posture against Epstein co-conspirator Ghislaine Maxwell. That's because this document shows the FBI conducted not just one, but 4 interviews with Trump's accuser. And, as I reported, while the government gave all 4 of those interviews to Maxwell's legal team ahead of her trial, the government gave only 1 of those 4 interviews to us in the Epstein files. In other words, this document shows that in choosing to withhold 3 of the 4 interviews from the Epstein files, the DOJ has granted Maxwell potential blackmail on the sitting president of the United States. That depends, of course, on what the victim said in those interviews, but it doesn't look good for Trump. However, if the victim exonerated him, the public needs to know that as well, and you'd think he'd see common ground there. Maxwell has held hostage this leverage over Trump since her team received the files in batches from DOJ prosecutors as a standard part of her trial prep in 2021. In April, July, and October, the records show. The victim was suing Epstein's estate at the time, settling with a report payout in December 2021. But if DOJ had released those interviews with the Epstein files, as it appears the law absolutely requires, any leverage Maxwell had there would be gone. Instead, Trump's DOJ, starring Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, and Kash Patel, let her keep it. What's more, the American people still wouldn't even know that Maxwell could potentially be blackmailing the president with these sworn victim statements if it weren't for the existence of precisely this document, the document I caught the DOJ removing from its public database. Notably, you can ascertain the existence of the 3 missing FBI interviews without this document. That's not why this document is special. The record that disappeared and is now back online is an evidence catalog showing that those interviews were among the non-witness material that DOJ prosecutors produced for Maxwell's defense team. In other words, this document is proof that Maxwell's attorneys have those interviews. It's also proof that all 4 of those interviews, part of the DOJ's Maxwell trial evidence, should in fact have been released to the public in the Epstein files. Why didn't Trump's DOJ release all of the victims' FBI interviews? Why would the DOJ be fine with Maxwell's attorney holding these records while apparently denying them to the American public in defiance of the law? The DOJ should release those interviews to the public, an act that would, coincidentally, considerably weaken the hand that we know Maxwell, perhaps uniquely, holds over the president. Clearly, the evidence in those 3 other interviews with the Trump victim is so bad that Donald Trump would rather have Ghislaine Maxwell be able to blackmail him than those interviews become public. Let me say that again. Donald Trump is more comfortable with Ghislaine Maxwell having blackmail over him than that information coming out. And it seems that that was the case still in the first term, a first term in which Donald Trump wished Ghislaine Maxwell well, a first term in which U.S. attorneys were emailing, talking about how Donald Trump could have some problems with the fact that he lied about how much time he spent with Ghislaine Maxwell, flying with Ghislaine Maxwell. They were well aware that Ghislaine Maxwell at least knew something about Donald Trump. That is an incredibly important revelation that the media should be talking about more. Yet they are not. There are only few and far between who do. And certainly someone who is making them is Ro Khanna, who had more to say on all of this in a clip we got to check out.
But Les Wexner seemed to spend the majority of yesterday's deposition claiming ignorance. What did you make of that?
Well, I was back in my district, but I really admire Robert Garcia's leadership and the members who were there. The biggest thing that came out of this is that the FBI and the Department of Justice has not investigated Les Wexner. With all his ties to Epstein, he has never had a phone call from the FBI or from the DOJ. And the fact that there was not a single Republican there shows how political they've made this. I mean, just because Les Wexner is a donor to Republican candidates, they decide that they don't need to show up. I have said that whether this implicates Democratic donors, Republican donors, Democratic officials, it doesn't matter. This is about justice for the survivors.
I always think you're there because you're in the middle of most things, but thank you for that correction. And people can watch the video out there as well. It's available publicly. Let me ask you about something that I thought was weird, especially since there were no Republican members there. There was a watermark, like a GOP watermark on this video that was released, even though they didn't show up. The members didn't show up. What was that about? And did you find that to be bizarre?
I did. I don't know if they wanted to show that they were there. But just like I corrected the record, Jen, with you, in this day and age, telling the truth is pretty basic. And usually you will get caught if you don't. Even if you don't have the morality to tell the truth, everything is on social media. It's easily verifiable. And the reality is they could have just said they didn't show up, but they tried to do this watermark, I think, to show that they were there.
Yesterday was a big deal, even though he didn't say a lot, but it was a big deal to depose somebody who's been accused. Who's next? Who are you guys looking at next? Who are you hoping to depose in the coming weeks?
Look, I believe every person in those files who said that they visited Epstein's island or who had extensive correspondence with Epstein after he was convicted should be deposed. I mean, it should include people like Bill Gates. It should include people who are not as prominent, and it should include people like Howard Lutnick.
We cannot take our foot off the gas with the Epstein files, and we are not going to on this show. I can promise you that much. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you. Until next time, I'll see you soon.